Dear viewers, welcome to another episode of Editorial Analysis by Drishti IAS. In this program, we analyze important editorials from major newspapers such as The Hindu, The Indian Express, Live Mint, Hindustan Times, etc. for effective understanding of students. Through this program, we focus on 3 points mainly. First, we try to establish a link between the editorial and the UPSC syllabus. Secondly, we try to understand what are the key points as mentioned in the editorial. And lastly, and most importantly, we try to learn what are the key concepts as mentioned in the editorial. Hope you like this new initiative of Drishti IAS. Please feel free to give us your valuable suggestions and opinions so that we can strive to do better. Thank you, and let us begin today's session of editorial analysis. Dear viewer, this video is available in Hindi as well. If you wish to watch it, please visit our Hindi YouTube channel, Drishti IAS. For your convenience, the link for this video in Hindi has been provided in the description below. For today, we have opted for the editorial Why the Anti-Defection Law has Failed to Deliver. It was in the Hindustan Times dated 30th July 2020, wherein the author talks about how inbuilt loopholes, the partisan role of institutions, and the influence of money in politics have weakened the anti-defection law. Let us try to connect the editorial with the UPSC syllabus. From prelims perspective, we can narrow it down to Indian polity and governance, specifically dealing with constitution, and from mains perspective, we can narrow it down to general studies too, dealing with constitution and polity, and to narrow it further, we can connect it with parliament and state legislatures, structure, functioning, conduct of business, powers and privileges, and issues arising out of these. Now, before we try to learn what are the key points of the editorial, let's have a little bit of a background. As you might be aware, there's a lot of turbulence in the recent state governments involving the switching of sides or simply the defections by elected representatives, and it has been increasingly frequent in recent months. But is this a recent phenomenon? No. The recent ongoing political crisis in Rajasthan has been continued after a turmoil in Goa and Manipur in 2019, and also the toppling of two state governments in Karnataka and Madhya Pradesh amid allegations of political defections and horse trading. So these are incidents that have been on a continuous mode since the last 2 years. Now, with this background in mind, let us try to learn what are the key points as mentioned in the editorial. The editorial constantly talks about toppling of governments. And what does it mean? It simply means bringing down of an elected government by depriving it of its majority through the defection of MLAs. Now, is this a new phenomena or recent phenomena? Absolutely not. This has been a constant headache for the government of the day since the early 60s. So, in order to resolve this problem, in 1985, the Constitution was amended with the 52nd Amendment Act to include the 10th Schedule, also known as the Anti-Defection Law. Now, what does this law do? It simply provides that members of the political parties who disobey the whip or vote against the party in a confidence motion will face disqualification. Now let us try to know who is the whip. Whip is simply an official of the party. What do? They ensure that members of their party follow the directions of the party in the legislature. However, the author states that the 10th schedule is simply no longer effective to check on the phenomenon of defections. And why does he feel so? Now, the reasons stated are the loopholes in the 10th schedule are enabling member of legislative assemblies and parliament to circumvent disqualification. Now, if you know that a member of the parliament or an MLA, if he crosses over, he attracts disqualification. However, these days, they simply resign from the party. And what happens? It reduces the majority and the government is toppled. Now, either the MLAs are lured through money or through offering positions if when a new government is formed. Another factor is the role of constitutional actors. This is governors and speakers in constitutional instability, and this has been raising a lot of concerns. Now, accusations have been flying that governors have acted like partisan representatives of the political party that appointed them. For example, the 8 a.m. government in Maharashtra, the fax machine not working in erstwhile J&K, the governor of Goa inviting the second largest party to form a coalition government are all examples of where governors have acted in partisan manner, and this has led to flouting of constitutional conventions with impunity. So similar accusations have also been pointed at speakers of the state assemblies as well. Hence, we can always try to remember the visionary Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who simply pointed out after the framing of the constitution that every constitutional text can be subverted, no matter how great it is, if those charged with running the affairs of the government are simply inclined to do so. Now, next we move to another factor, talking about the judiciary, where the author claims that the judiciary has not been fulfilling its responsibility because the recent judgments by the judiciary with reference to defection and disqualification are effectively overriding the very provisions of the 10th schedule. To explain further, the recent judgment by the Supreme Court on Karnataka, wherein it stated that the Speaker's orders on the rebelling MLAs need not be complied. So this is technically what even the rebel MLAs also wanted. Also, the recent decision by the High Court of Rajasthan to place an injunction order on the orders of the Speaker has also been criticized by a lot of experts. And last but not the least, the presence of money in politics. Now, you would have heard about resort politics, you would have heard about suitcase politics, where huge sums of money are offered to MLAs to simply resign from their parties and bring down the government. The author claims that this is enabled by the existence of electoral bonds, which simply allows for unlimited and anonymous funding to political parties. Now, let us take a break and try to summarize what all have we learned from the key points of the editorial. Now, as you're aware, the ongoing political crisis in the states, ranging from Rajasthan, MP, Karnataka, the turmoil in Goa and Manipur, due to political defections. Now, has this been new? Absolutely not. Defections have been headaches since the 60s. Hence, the government of the day in 1985 led to the introduction of the 10th schedule or the anti-defection law through the 52nd Amendment Act. What was the provision of the Act? It disqualified members who disobeyed the orders of the whip or voted against the party directions or defected to another political party. However, concerns have been raised. What are they? 1. The loopholes in the law are simply enabling MLAs to circumvent disqualification. How? Instead of crossing over to another party, they simply resign and reduce the majority of the government, thereby toppling it. Another concern is the role of constitutional actors. This is the governors and the speakers in constitutional instability. Also, the judiciary has not stepped up to control defections. And lastly, the presence of money through electoral bonds. Therefore, to conclude, of course, the anti-defection law needs to be improved. Some of the suggestions were a 5-year-long ban or barring any of the members from standing for elections again if due to disqualification or resignation. Another factor is curtailing the legally sanctioned influence of big money in politics. Dear viewers, let us know your suggestions through the comments below. Now we move on to the next part, that is the key concepts that we have to learn from the editorial. Most importantly, we have to learn about the 10th schedule and the anti-defection law. So, what is the anti-defection law? Now, before we get to that, let us try to also have a little bit of historical perspective. Now, as I stated earlier, political defections is not a recent phenomenon. This has been existing since the early 1960s. It was so prominent that a political phrase referred to as Aya Ram, Gaya Ram became so popular in Indian politics after a Haryana MLA, Gaya Lal, changed his party thrice within the same day in 1967. This was a constant headache, and hence a law was sought to prevent such political defections, which may be due to reward of office or other similar considerations. Therefore, the then government of the day in 1985 introduced the 52nd Amendment Act of the Constitution, whereby it provided for disqualification of the members of the parliament and the state legislatures on the ground of defection from one political party to another. For this, changes were also made to 4 articles. This is Article 101, 102, 190 and 191, which deals with vacation of a seat and disqualification of a member of the parliament. And a new schedule, the 10th schedule, was added to the constitution. And this act was referred to as the Anti-Defection Law. However, there were also a further amendment. Until 2003, the law also exempted defections caused by 1/3 members of the original party splitting from the party. However, the 91st Amendment Act of 2003 was introduced and thereby it omitted this exemption. Now we try to learn what are the key provisions of the 10th schedule. Now, to begin with, when can a legislature be disqualified? If a member of a house belonging to a political party voluntarily gives up membership of his political party or votes contrary to a direction issued by his political party or does not vote in the house at all, when such a discretion is issued, he can be disqualified. However, a member shall not be disqualified if he has taken prior permission of his party or if his action has been condoned, which means excused or overlooked by the party within 15 days from such voting or abstention. Another factor that can get a legislature disqualified is if an independent candidate, that is a candidate who is not set up by any political party, however decided to contest, win the elections, but then joins a party after the elections, he can be disqualified. Lastly, if a nominated member joins a party 6 months after he becomes a member of the legislature, he can be disqualified. That does not mean the nominated member cannot join a party. Within 6 months of taking the seat, if he joins the party, he will not attract the defection law. But after 6 months, he will be disqualified if he joins the party. Now, are there any exceptions? Yes. Any person shall not be disqualified if his original party merges with another. This is again only applicable if more than 2/3 of the members of the party have agreed to the merger. And now, if this person, he and other members of the political party become members of the new political party, or he and other members do not accept the merger and opt to function as a separate group, those are exemptions and it will not attract any anti-defection law. Now, who has the power to disqualify members who are defecting? The chairman or the speaker of the house takes the decision to disqualify a member. This can only be done provided they receive a complaint from a member of the house. Now, does that mean the decision of the chairman or the speaker of the house or the presiding officer is the last word? Absolutely not. That is why in 1993, in the Quijotto-Holohan case judgment, it was decided that the decision of the presiding officer is subject to judicial review by the Supreme Court and the High Courts. Now let us try to learn what are the advantages and criticism of the anti-defection law. Now, propagators of the anti-defection law state that it provides greater stability by preventing legislatures from switching or changing political parties. But in current context, what do you think? Secondly, it reduces corruption at the political level, again, which is something that is not true as of today. Thirdly, it reduces unnecessary expenditures that are incurred on irregular elections due to the fall of the government. Lastly, it promotes democratic realignment through merger of parties that fight for a cause and thereby not attracting disqualification. However, there are quite a few criticisms also against the anti-defection law. Firstly, there is no difference between dissent and defection. Now, a member of a party may agree to 99% of what the party says, but if there is something that he does not agree with, he also has the right to dissent. But does the anti-defection law force the dissenting member to toe the line? This is a great concern raised by critics of the anti-defection law. Therefore, they suggest that the anti-defection law curbs the legislature's freedom of conscience. Another criticism is distinction between individual defection and group defection is irrational. Now, if an individual defects to another party, that will attract disqualification. However, group defection or if there's a merger, there is no disqualification is something that is very irrational. Also, another criticism is that it does not provide for the expulsion of a legislator from his party for his activities outside the legislature. Many legislators will toe the line in the assemblies or in the parliament, but once outside, they go against their very own government. So, the anti-defection law only functions within the parliament and the state legislatures, but not outside. Hence, this is also another criticism. And lastly, there is also criticism about the discrimination between an independent and nominated members. So, as we mentioned before, an independent member cannot join a party after he takes the seat of the House, while a nominated member is allowed to join a party within 6 months of joining the House. So there is a criticism as to why is the former disqualified for joining a party while the latter can still join the party and cannot attract disqualification. Dear viewers, let's also look at some of the committees or commissions and their recommendations with reference to reforms of the anti-defection law. Some of the prominent committees were the Dinesh Goswami Committee on Electoral Reforms in 1990, the Halim Committee on Anti-Defection Law 1998, the Law Commission Report of 1999, the National Constitution Review Commission of 2002, the Law Commission Report 2015, and the Law Commission Draft Report of the 2018. Now let us try to understand what are the reforms suggested by all these parties and the others based on certain provisions. To begin with, the coverage. So, committees have suggested that political parties should limit issuance of whips to instances only when the government is in danger and not for every cause or factor. Another recommendation is that disqualification should be limited to cases where a member voluntarily gives up the membership of his political party or a member abstains from voting or votes contrary to the party whip in a motion of vote of confidence or motion of no confidence. Another recommendation is that provisions which exempt mergers from disqualification should be deleted. Now, another provision is with reference to definitions. Committees have suggested that the words voluntarily giving up membership of a political party should be comprehensively defined. Another recommendation is that the term political party should also be defined clearly. For example, can a pre-poll electoral front be treated as a political party, because we have witnessed that a pre-poll electoral front may not join together post-elections. Now with the provision of decision making. Now, committees have suggested that the issue of disqualification should be decided by the president or the governor on the advice of the election commission, thereby withdrawing this power from the speaker. They believe that most of the speakers can be partisan to the party that they belong to. Now, with reference to the decision-making power of the speaker, committees have suggested that they must rule on a dispute under the 10th schedule as expeditiously as possible, which means as soon as possible. For this, a period of 6 months for disposal of the petition has also been recommended. And lastly, with provisions to implications of defecting, committees again have suggested that restrictions like prohibition on joining another party or holding offices in the government should be imposed on expelled members. Defectors should be barred from holding public office or any remunerative political post for the duration of the remaining term of the legislature, and also the vote cast by a defector to topple a government should be treated as invalid. Now, dear students, let us try to conclude this topic by understanding how questions can be asked from prelims and mains perspective. Now, from prelims perspectives, definitely questions can come from the 10th schedule. A question that was asked in 2014 in UPSC was, which one of the following schedules of the Constitution of India contains provisions regarding anti-defection? If you would have heard this session well, you would be able to answer that it is the 10th schedule. Also, questions can also come with reference to provisions of disqualifications or exemptions with reference to disqualifications. Sometimes even judgments and even amendment acts can also be asked by the UPSC. Now, with reference to mains, we can see that the provisions of the anti-defection law can be asked by the Union Public Service Commission. Also, whether the anti-defection law has actually served its purpose or has it failed to meet its objective in the recent past can be a question you can be asked to critically discuss about this point. One question that had appeared in 2013 was the role of individual MPs has diminished over the years, and as a result, healthy constructive debates on policy issues are not usually witnessed. How far can this be attributed to the anti-defection law, which was legislated with a different intention? So, dear students, I hope we have done justice to this topic. Please feel free to let us know about your valuable suggestions so that we can strive to do better. With this, we end today's session of editorial analysis. Until next time, stay safe and thank you.